The DOJ released millions of pages of Epstein files. And then NPR found that the pages specifically about a woman who made serious allegations against Donald Trump were missing. The DOJ released them after getting caught by investigative reporter Julie K. Brown. She broke the original Epstein story, and she has reported that federal investigators found the woman credible, the woman who's making these allegations against Trump, and they would not have interviewed her 4 times if they didn't find her credible. There's also a newly released FBI interview document from 2019 in which an inmate described guards discussing a cover-up moments after Epstein's body was found. Meanwhile, Trump, he says the files totally exonerate him, now has had his DOJ sitting on at least 37 more pages that the law requires to be public. It is very clear that the war of Epstein distraction, the war of epic fury in Iran is working because Epstein searches are at an all-time low. So let me talk you through all of this very carefully because there's several threads here and they're all going to connect. And let me be very careful here. Just being mentioned in the Epstein files doesn't mean anybody's guilty. And the language I'm going to use, I'm going to have to soften it a bit to make it YouTube friendly. So just keep that in mind. So I'm going to start with the act. We know that the act, the Epstein Files Transparency Act, Congress passed that in November. It required the DOJ to release everything in its possession related to Jeffrey Epstein within 30 days. The DOJ was late releasing millions of pages. So reporters like NPR went and did what reporters are supposed to do. They compared what was released against evidence logs from Epstein's co-conspirators trial, Ghislaine Maxwell, and they found something was missing. Specifically, importantly, there were 53 pages that appeared to be cataloged in the DOJ's own system, but weren't at all in the public database. Among those missing pages, multiple FBI interview summaries with a woman who made serious allegations against the sitting president of the United States. Those pages weren't released until after NPR published their investigation and congressional Democrats publicly accused the DOJ of illegally withholding them. Representative Robert Garcia of California, the ranking Democrat on the House Oversight Committee, saying oversight Democrats can confirm that the DOJ appears to have illegally withheld FBI interviews with the survivor. That's the top Democrat on the committee that oversees the Justice Department, telling you in plain language that the DOJ continues to break the law to protect the president. What did the DOJ have to say about it? They said that the files were incorrectly deemed duplicative. In other words, oops, a filing error. 4 FBI interview summaries with a woman alleging crimes by a sitting president somehow misfiled all at once. At least 37 pages are still missing as of this week, including the actual interview notes that informed the summaries, internal communications about how this case was handled, and records of how the investigation was resolved. And so, what was actually in the documents that were released? And again, I want to be clear, these are alleged, and I'm going to be careful with wording. You can look for these documents yourselves and you can read them yourselves, but I've got to be careful because of YouTube's algorithm. A woman contacted the FBI in 2019 following Epstein's arrest. And she said that in or around 1984, when she was approximately 13 years old, she was hired by Epstein for what she believed was a babysitting job in Hilton Head, South Carolina. There weren't any kids there. What happened instead was described in her FBI interview, and I'm not going to say the details here, but it involves serious physical harm. And this continued across multiple incidents. At some point during this period, the FBI documents, they say that between 1983 and 1985, when she was between 13 and 15 years old, Epstein transported her to New York or New Jersey. She described being taken to a very tall building with huge rooms. There, according to the interview summary, Epstein introduced her to Donald Trump. What she described happening next is in those official FBI documents. A DOJ PowerPoint presentation summarizing the case for investigators, filed under the heading Prominent Names, describes in clinical, disgusting language what she alleged Trump did and what she did in response and how he reacted. And again, I cannot say this on air, but you've got to go look for it yourself. The DOJ's public database and all of the links, we're going to put those in the description. And it involves a serious physical assault of a minor. She also told the FBI that she heard Trump and Epstein talking about Epstein blackmailing people. And she said that she heard Trump talking about washing money through casinos. She also described the language that Epstein and Trump allegedly used when referring to young women. Per the FBI interview, they called young women fresh meat, untainted, and not jaded. She told agents that she didn't understand the term not jaded and had to look the word up. In a later interview, another woman described Epstein taking her, also as a young teenager, to Trump's Mar-a-Lago property. Per the interview notes from the FBI, Epstein told Trump, "This is a good one, huh?" Both men reportedly laugh. She said she felt so uncomfortable, but she was so young that she couldn't understand why she was uncomfortable. And now here's what we need to know about how seriously the investigators took the first woman's account. The FBI interviewed her 4 times. It was in a PowerPoint presentation summarizing the investigation called Prominent Names. It was written for investigators by investigators, not for public release. It appeared in an email chain between FBI agents. It was referenced in a DOJ slide deck. Julie K. Brown, the reporter who cracked this story open in the first place, reported this week that DOJ, their officials interviewed this woman and found her credible. And her exact words were that they wouldn't have interviewed her 4 times if they didn't. The accuser, identified in court documents as Jane Doe number 4, filed a lawsuit against Epstein's estate. It was later dismissed. Her lawyer confirmed to the Post and Courier that she received a financial settlement from Epstein's estate. She was separately deemed ineligible for the official compensation program from Epstein's victims, probably because of the settlement, but it's not clear exactly why. The White House's official response here: Press Secretary Carolyn Leavitt calling the claims completely baseless accusations backed by zero credible evidence from a sadly disturbed woman who has extensive criminal history. Leavitt added that the Biden DOJ had the documents for 4 years and did nothing with them, which she offered as proof that the allegations were false. Of course, blame the victims. Blame Biden, right out of Pam Bondi's book. Now, I want to talk about the second document that dropped this week from Julie K. Brown Substack. FBI 302 interview conducted in August of 2019 after Epstein's death, just 18 days after he died. And it was an inmate that was housed at the Metropolitan Correctional Center where Epstein died. Under a proffer agreement, meaning this was a person cooperating with investigators and had legal incentive to be truthful. This inmate telling FBI agents that he heard on the morning of August 10th, 2019, officers shouting, "Breathe, breathe," around 6:30 a.m. And an officer saying to a colleague, "Dudes, you killed that dude." Then a female guard replying, "If he is dead, we're going to cover it up and he's going to have an alibi. My officers." The inmate said the entire housing tier heard this. He also said that afterwards, other inmates were saying, "Miss Noel killed Jeffrey." The official ruling is that Epstein did this to himself. The 2 guards that were later indicted weren't for any involvement in his death, but for falsifying records because they were asleep at the time instead of doing their rounds. No one has ever been charged in connection with the death itself. And I'm not here to tell you definitively what happened in that cell. I'm telling you that a federal document exists, taken under a legal cooperation agreement in which a witness describes a guard saying, "We're going to cover it up," while the body was still warm. That document has been in federal custody for years before it reached the public. Look, Trump said the Epstein files totally exonerate him, but instead what we're seeing in the documents is that Trump has been associated with guilt. I'm not saying he's guilty, but he has been associated with these alleged crimes for decades. And instead, he is out there doing everything he can to distract. The Iranian war, all of this stuff with ICE, it all looks like a giant distraction from a child predator that is sitting in the White House trying to protect himself and all of his billionaire buddies. It is absolutely disgusting, and we have got to keep bringing this up every time they try to bury it under some other horrendous act. It is time we bring justice for these victims. Doesn't it seem like our feeds are getting filled with more and more BS right-wing MAGA content? It's no secret that all these top tech bros are in love with the current regime, so it's no surprise that independent left-leaning media is being squashed by the algorithm. If you like our content and content like us, it doesn't take long to click that thumbs up, share, comment, or subscribe. So please help us keep the truth alive.